Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Nice to have you with us. Please turn on your screens so we can have this conversation together. Looking forward to having a little discussion this morning. Okay, Andrew, would you please put us on gallery for just a minute, please? I have a word or two that I want to say to everybody. I want to see everybody. Thank you. So delighted to continue our discussion about values this morning and building culture. Thank you. There's Keith. Good morning, Keith. Delighted to continue the conversation on building culture. You know, there's an example out there right now. I think it's helpful to think about examples, and you don't need to be a sports fan to follow the point here. But sports are an easy thing for us to look at when we're talking about culture. Why is it that certain teams seem to perform better than others, even if they don't necessarily have the best players in the league? And how is it that certain teams can be so bad for a while and then they turn good? That's happening right now in football with the New York Giants. They've been one of the worst teams in the league for the last 5 years. They've had different coaches come and go. They've had different players come and go, and they've won about 20% of their games and lost 80% of them. They've been really bad. This year so far, they've played 5 games and they've won 80% of them. So how is it that a new coach comes in and changes a team that for 5 years has been performing at the very bottom of the league, and within 5 games is winning 80% of the games? Now, will it hold up? Who knows? It's a long season, but the point here is something's going on there. They have mostly the same players. Yeah, they have a few new players. It's true. They have a couple new coaches. Absolutely. But there's something going on there about how they feel about their ability to win. There's something about the mindset that they carry in with them to the games that somehow is translating to something and is part of the puzzle here. So I want everybody to understand that you can't necessarily see the culture of all the competitors out there in your particular market, but your team culture is a competitive advantage if you can get it right. That's why we talk about this stuff. So we're going to continue our conversation today. I'm going to share a few slides, and I'm going to come off slides and ask you guys to share with me a little bit about how is this discussion going for you so far? Are you implementing any of this stuff with your teams? What's going well? What's not going well? I want to hear a little feedback from you guys. Then I have a question for you towards the end. So let me pull up the slide for now. Switch that. Okay. So continuing our conversation about building a winning culture. Now, you should understand that cultures aren't necessarily built overnight. It's great to see the Giants winning some games, but I don't believe that they're going to win 80% of their games forever and ever and ever. Because culture is built over time. You can't just flip a switch and get there. This is the same thing, whether it's the culture of your marriage, the same thing, whether it's the culture of your family. It's something that you need to spend consistent time with overall. Over a long period of time. And this is one of the reasons why most teams never get there, is because it requires consistent application over a long period of time. And we know that sometimes we have trouble doing those things, right? We get caught up in the latest deal or the latest challenge or the latest difficulty or the latest, let's say even, call on Chirag Shah Coaching or 6 a.m.ers or whatever. And we forget to do some of the things that are really important over time. It's the same challenge that people have with getting healthy. If you could just flip a switch and be healthy and overnight, everybody would do it. But the fact that you actually have to go to the gym or exercise day after day after day after day, no matter how you feel, no matter what the weather is, and eat the right things over and over and over again and avoid the wrong things over and over, it's not easy. That's the nature of the challenge, and it's the same thing here. So what is culture? 2 quick slides of a review from last week. What is culture? It's really important for you to recognize that culture is ultimately a pattern of thinking and a pattern of doing. And your goal in this work is to embed in the minds of your workers a consistent pattern of thinking and doing that supports your business, that will be there when you're not there standing next to them. Right? To take the coaching analogy, the coach can't make the players make the plays out on the field. All the coach can do is prepare them to be out in the field and make the right choices in the moment. Same thing here. You want to ultimately make sure that people are living the right principles in your business that supports your business, making the right individual choices 20 times a day without you standing right next to them saying, do it this way and doing it that way. If you don't want to get caught up in the business and you want to step out of production to a certain degree, all you have to do is make sure that the people on the team are leading themselves in the business in the way that supports the business. Another way to think about it is how we do things around here. Think about your culture as a way of life. It's a philosophical approach to how we want to be and what we want to do on this team. Where does it come from? Three things we talked about last time. Mindset, which is primarily centered on the values that we hold and the beliefs that we hold as a team. That's our philosophical approach to succeeding. The structure that we may have certain roles on the team, we may not have others, and that influences how we handle certain situations. Can't get around that. And third, actions and behaviors. Everyone chooses their actions and behaviors at every moment. So in a sense, everyone is uploading themselves or contributing to the culture, but you want them to be choosing the right actions and behaviors. Imagine if somebody on your team observes somebody else on the team slacking off, and they see you as a team leader as not holding that person accountable. Are they more likely, possibly, to start slacking off themselves? Yeah, maybe. Quite likely. And so everyone is influencing the culture. And so you want to make sure that as a leader, you're influencing everyone towards the right kinds of mindset and the right kinds of actions and behaviors. That's why we started to talk about values. So we start the conversation here on values. Now, this slide is really important. I really hope you'll print it out and put it on the wall somewhere. I really hope that you'll hand it to everybody on your team and have a discussion about this, because the values are the core of what it is that you do. They are the reference point. How do you get somebody to make the right choices in a given situation at a given moment? What's the reference point for them to choose A versus B? Well, values are among the most important reference points for everyone to have. That's why you need to be clear about what they are and embed them into everyone's thinking. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Remember that the two ones that are listed here, the top two bullet points, are really more internal in nature, like internal to each of our minds. But the last two are more external. This is the expression of these values that our clients will experience. Does that make sense? A value is not just an idea in your head. It's a reference point for how you show up as an agent, as an admin, as a transaction coordinator, as the team leader, in a way that delivers a benefit to the client. When you go to Walmart, you know you're going to get something cheap, and you do. That's the benefit they receive by going there. When you go to Rolls-Royce, you get a luxurious car, but you don't just get a luxurious car, you get a luxurious experience. If your car needs to be fixed, they'll loan you another car. They'll drive you home. They'll, give you a drink of water or coffee or whatever it is, right? There's a lot that goes into the experience that the Rolls-Royce customer gets, besides simply a hunk of metal with four wheels. It's about the experience that they get from you. And this is why values are so closely tied to your brand. Remember, this is how we define brand here. Your brand is your promise of a future experience. And so the experience that you want your clients to have is your brand. And where does that experience come from? It comes from values, among other things. And so when you're talking about values with your team, it's not just some like theoretical conversation. It's how do we translate responsiveness to the client's experience? How do we translate fun to the client's experience? How do we translate creativity? Whatever it might be that you choose as your values, you have to choose values that can deliver some kind of expression of them to everyone. This is why not all the values that you saw on the list that we made available to everybody might be appropriate for you. So how do we begin embedding values into the team's operations? Well, there's three parts of this, and there's kind of a flow to this. First part is what we call clarification. That's the process we're talking about right now, where you as the team leader need to clarify with the team what are the top 1, 2, or 3 values that we want to use as key reference points for everything we do here. Same thing with your family. Do you want your family to be based on honesty or not? Do you want it to be based on fairness or not? Do you want it to be based on respect or not? Whether you know it or not, you have some perspective on these values with your family. And chances are a lot of actions that you've taken to raise your kids are taken in a way that aligns with those particular values, even if you never sat down and said, our family is based on respect, honesty, and teamwork, something like that, right? Most of us never do that for the family, but the culture is there. And so as the leader of your team, you have the opportunity to create an intentional culture rather than just have one kind of develop on its own. So the first step is clarification, identifying the values that you want everyone to keep in mind as the key reference points. Second point is demonstration. You as the leader need to demonstrate these things consistently and well. You can't say we need to stand for this and then you don't stand for it yourself. Because if you don't stand for it, no one else is going to stand for it. If you believe accountability matters to your team, you have to be accountable. If you believe responsiveness matters to your team, you need to be responsive. If you're going to tell your team respect matters, you need to be respectful. Absolutely. You have to demonstrate these things as well and as consistently as possible. Otherwise, no one will ever get an expression of them from you. And so what we find is many teams that the leader may demonstrate these things quite well. And that's part of the reason why the person became successful in the first place. But the other people on the team don't. And ultimately, everybody on your team needs to be good at doing these values. Imagine going to Rolls-Royce where the value is luxury, and luxury might include respect and politeness and those kinds of things. And when some client walks into the Rolls-Royce showroom and, the employee there disses them for some reason, right? Isn't polite and respectful to them. That's not a luxurious experience, right? And so the client walks in there expecting to get luxury because that's what their impression of the brand is, and they get some rude salesperson, right? And so the demonstration of this is you saying to your team, this is what it can look like, and I want to get to the point where all of you are as good at these values as I am. And third, conversation. This means an ongoing discussion until the end of time, from time to time, with everybody on your team about what these values are and how to express them in the business. It can't be something you talk about on January 1st of one year and expect people to remember it for the rest of the year or the next 5 years. Just like in your marriage, if you believe your marriage ought to be focused on respect and honesty and caring and things like that, if you're not getting that, or you think either of you is not measuring up, you talk about it, right? If you didn't honor the value, you might say, you know what, I need to apologize to you. I didn't do X, Y, Z. Or if your spouse or significant other isn't living up to something that you feel like you've both agreed on, maybe you call that person out on it. Doesn't mean that you confront them and make a conflict. It's simply, it needs to be talked about, right? It can't simply be said once and then forgotten for the rest of the time. So as you think about how do I get values into the heads of everybody on my team and make sure that they're making the right choices over time, it starts with clarifying what those points are, what those values are, demonstrating them consistently every day yourself, and then having conversation regularly, maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, where you come back to these values, you ask everybody, what are our values again? Ding, ding, ding. How do we live those values? X, Y, Z, right? Having some kind of conversation over time. If you have a yearly retreat or twice a year, you have some kind of a retreat, one piece in that retreat should be a discussion about the values and the culture of the team. So how do we deepen the understanding here of values besides simply choosing one? Well, we made the list available to everybody. It's on the platform for you to download anytime if you haven't done this yet. It's not just about choosing a value off of a list or a value that's important to you. You have to go further than that because we know that people define words differently. We use the same word, but we have a different understanding of what it means, right? What happens when you think professionalism means somebody needs to stay late and solve the problem right now? Whereas somebody else's definition of professionalism means, it's okay to work on it tomorrow. Or if you think respect means you talk politely to people when you work with them, especially the people on your own team. Somebody else's idea of respect means, I just speak bluntly. I'm still respectful. I just speak very bluntly and I just tell it like it is. I wear my heart on my sleeve, right? Very different ideas about what these things might mean. So it's important for you to not just choose the value, but define it. That is, create a one-sentence statement about what that concept means. And when you do this, it's important to make sure that you're not describing it or giving an example of it, but rather defining it. Here's an example. Let's say someone were to choose the word teamwork, okay? Definition of teamwork is not when Susan is out of the office, Bill covers all of her calls and client needs. That's not a definition of teamwork. That's an example of teamwork. A definition of teamwork might be a group of people collaborating together for a common goal. Does that make sense? There's a difference here. And so to define a word, whether you choose the word integrity, whether you choose the word accountability, whether you choose the word fun, whether you choose the word responsiveness, whether you choose the word accountability, doesn't matter what it is. You need to know what you're talking about, and everyone needs to have the same concept of what that is. If they don't, I guarantee you their actions and behaviors will be different. And then once you've defined it, then you can say, okay, so how do we link actions and behaviors to this particular value? In other words, what does this look like in the day-to-day course of events? You have to help your team make the leap from concept to action. Because even if you have the same definition, people don't necessarily translate that into, oh yeah, this is how I can live responsiveness. This is how I can live accountability. This is how I can live respect in front of my clients. So here's what you guys should be doing next. First, if you haven't selected the values for your team, start the conversation. Start talking about it. Say, hey, everybody, we need to create more of a defined and intentional culture here. And one part of that is values and beliefs. And so we need to select 1 to 3 values that are going to be core to our business going forward. Remember that slide beforehand with the 4 bullet points that are core to our business, that we want to be the touch points, the touchstones for how we work with our clients and how we work with each other. You can choose off of that list, but remember that's not intended to be a complete list. It's just a list to get you guys started. It's not every value ever invented in the English language. It's just a starting point. So if there are values that matter to you that are not on that list, go ahead and choose them. And I had some instructions for that last time. I suggested that you guys choose 5 to 7 as a team. And then you as an individual, as a team leader, choose the 2 or 3 that you think are most important. Now, it's important when you choose those values that they're not just values that are important to who you are, but they're values that can be expressed to deliver value to clients. For example, responsiveness. Responsiveness might be really important to you. It's also something that can deliver value to clients because it means you get back to the client very quickly. Or it means that they ask you a question and you give them exactly the information that they need, right? That's delivering value to them. There are some values that might be core to who you are, but are not so easy to deliver value to clients. For example, faith. I mentioned this last time. Some folks, very faithful, very ardent religious folks, reading the Bible every single day. It's very important and core to who they are. But is faith an expression, is faith a value that you want to express to your clients? Chances are no. And so while it may be core to who you are, it's not core to the value that you provide to clients. Does that make sense? So when you choose certain values off the list, you need to ask yourself, does it cover all 4 of those bullet points from this previous slide, not just the first 2? So select the values first, then define them. Create a definition together with your team. Start with a dictionary definition. If you like it, just stick with that. If not, modify it. 1 sentence, simple definition. This is what we mean by respect here. Or this is what we mean by responsiveness here. Or this is what we mean by caring here. And then, this is important, link each one to specific actions and behaviors for various people on your team so that everyone can understand what that looks like in the course of everyday business. So for example, it could be, let's say your value is responsiveness. How could Susan, in her role, demonstrate our value of responsiveness? Well, in Susan's case, maybe it's she's willing to respond to client requests 7 days a week rather than 5, even though she's an admin person. That's a demonstration of our willingness to be responsive. How could someone else, let's say an agent, how could an agent demonstrate responsiveness? Well, maybe that agent wants to make a commitment to all of her clients that she'll respond to every single email within, every single text or message within 90 minutes. Fine, you can do it that way. You don't have to do it that way. But the point is, they need to find a way to be able to translate this concept of the value into actions and behaviors that deliver the experience of that value to clients. Does that make sense? This is the projection of your brand, and it's very intentional. It's not flying along by the seat of your pants, trying to just like save this deal and manage that deal and a lot of the kind of defensive stuff that we're always doing that's really reactive. It's about ultimately being proactive as a team, saying, how is it that we need to be? What is it that we need to do in order to be effective in what it is we're trying to do here? All right, let me pull this down. So as I said last week, Compass tries to do this with the CEPs. CEPs are a number of beliefs, similar to values, but a little bit different. Beliefs that the company puts out over and over and over and over again and are always available for people to think about. And from time to time, the SM, your sales managers and others might talk with you about some of those things. Certainly Chirag and I bring them up from time to time. Things like collaborate without ego, learn from reality. What Compass is saying is, we have 30,000 people out there in the field in thousands of teams in 50 different states. And how do we get them all to project a common idea of what Compass is? to people? How do we project the Compass brand? Well, part of that is done through these particular beliefs or concepts. In other words, we're saying we believe it's good for business when we collaborate without ego, and we want you to be doing that regularly. We believe it's important for success in business to learn from reality, and we want you to continue to do that. We think it's important for business to be obsessed about opportunity, and we want you to be that. In a sense, it's just a simple checklist from Robert Refkin and everyone saying, this is how we want you to be a Compass person. Now, most of us don't really follow those things. We don't listen to them. Yeah, we might do collaborate without ego sometimes. And Chirag and I sometimes, we will say, hey, listen, collaborate without ego, get together, join the community kind of stuff. We're trying to promote that because it is part of the culture here. It is part of how we do things. But you can just see how Compass could totally stumble as a brand and as a company if nobody ever paid attention to any of those 8 things or anything else. And of course, Compass does have this challenge around the technology, right? Compass has developed this technology that nobody else in the world has. Is every single one of you using that stuff every single day? No, most of you aren't. So there's latent potential that we haven't yet captured as a larger company. That's not your business, that's their business. You get to run your business your own way. But it's the same thing here. Whether you have 3 employees, 6 employees, 12 employees, you're trying to extend your philosophy about business down to everybody and collaborate with those who are agents, even if they're independent contractors, doesn't matter. You're on the same team here and you want to find a common way of succeeding in business. If you remember from one of my earlier talks, it's important for you as a team to have not just a common goal, but a common approach to business success. Do you remember that? That's how we define team. A team is a group of people with a common goal and a common approach to business success. And when we talk about that common approach to business success, what's that built on? What's the foundation? Values, beliefs, and other things. So let me pause right here and take a couple questions from you. Who has a thought or a question about anything I'm saying today? And what are you running into in terms of having these conversations with your teams? Please raise your hand and we'll take you off mute for a minute and have a little discussion. All right, Corey, please. Can you unmute yourself? Go ahead.
Sure. Motivation is a huge, I'm in the office way before anyone else on my team, and I'm definitely here later than everyone else on the team. And to get other people to think like you it feels like almost impossible.
Got it. So great. I get it. It's your business. It's not their business. Business plays a certain role in your life, which is different from the role that business plays in their lives. And we can't necessarily ding them for that. That's just where they are in their lives. My question for you is, what's causing that? What's the barrier there? What is it that makes it hard for you to get them to think like you?
Complacency. They've been handed leads for, I've been doing this 26 years. Most of my team members have been with me over 15 years. And it's just a much different mindset today than it was. Literally we started, there was no internet. So it's just a whole different world now.
Got it. Okay. So they don't care. So you like to employ people who don't care?
Truthfully, I only have 2 employees that have been here with less than 5 years. Everyone else has been 20 to 30 years at the team.
Got it. So it's really hard, everybody, to change a culture once you've created one. However, it's never impossible. One thing about culture is it's dynamic, right? All those football players on the New York Giants who were there last year and there this year, it's a different world. Different coaches, different way of doing things, different values, different results. We can change culture anytime. The question is, do we have the guts to do it? And do we have a way to do it? So, there's some listening that needs to happen here for Corey and for anyone in that particular position. In a sense, what you're doing, what we're talking about here is you offering a way of working together that's maybe different from what others have done in the past. And you need to understand, why are they choosing not to go that way with you? Right? There's a listening necessity here. If they thought it was so wonderful, they just come along with you. But something is getting in their way. They're saying, it's not worth it to me to be in a conversation with Corey about how important it is for us to be responsive to our clients. Right? Essentially, that's what's happening in their mind, whether they're conscious of it or not. And so you need to understand why that's the case for them. If we can't understand why they're not choosing that, then we're not going to get anywhere with them. And ultimately, it's up to you, right? I mean, here's a question for all of you. It's a coaching question I ask many of my clients. What are you tolerating in your business? Write it down, put it on your wall, ask yourself every day, what am I tolerating? Because if I'm tolerating people who don't want to do business the way that I think business is important to be done, then what do I do about that, right? Do I change them? Do I change them out for somebody else? What kind of conversations can we have to build a different type of culture here? And as I said, culture doesn't get built overnight. In fact, when you've had a culture of, let's say that you've had a marriage of lying and cheating with each other, and that's been going on for 10 years. How do you, if you wake up one day and say, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to build another culture based on real trust and honesty and commitment or whatever. It's not going to happen overnight. And so this is why we say this conversation, it's clarification, demonstration, and conversation from time to time until the end of time. So if you're really committed to having your team perform at the highest possible level, you have to commit yourself to an ongoing dialogue with everyone about how it is we need to work together. What do we base our work together on? Now, values are really a good place to start for this because there's no right and wrong. You can't really judge somebody if they feel responsiveness is important and you feel accountability is important and somebody else feels, innovation is important. They're all important, great. But it's a great place to meet, to have a conversation, which is really asking the question, how should we work together? What is our formula for success here? We've chosen to align ourselves together. We've chosen to say no to the rest of the world so that we can be here with these 3 people, 5 people, 7 people, whatever it is. We've made a commitment to be here. What is it that we want to create together and how do we get there? Thank you, Corey. Let me hear from someone else. Anyone who started this process or started this conversation with your team, I'm really curious to hear, how has it gone for you so far? Please come off mute. Let me hear. Okay, great. Let me ask a more basic question. Answer this one in the chat, please. How many of you have taken any steps to move forward about culture since we started this conversation last week? All right. Thank you, Corey. Who else? Who else has taken a step?
David, I'd like to share something.
Thank you. Please do.
So we took a first step. My operations manager and I were talking about this after the call last week. And what we decided to do is that she reached out to each of the team members with a nice email letting her know what we're trying to do, what we're working on, and that this is going to be an ongoing process, and scheduled calls with each agent individually. And yesterday she had the first call with one of the agents. And basically, she took notes from the call. She let them know that it's going to be about culture. We want to get your input, your feedback, and how do you feel about the culture? How would you like things to be, and so forth. So we did get one call. We have other calls scheduled this week. So I'll have more by next week, but that's kind of where we are right now. One thing I did want to add that we didn't do is I should have shared that list with them so they can pick 2 to 3 words off that list and kind of see where they're at with that. But that's something I'm going to do with the rest of the calls.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Alex, those are good steps. You can start this process by talking to each person individually, or you can start it as a group. It really doesn't matter. Eventually, you need to come together as a group because this is a shared discussion to have, right? If you were to sit down with people in your family and say, look, we want to have this kind of a family life. We want to be loving and caring and supportive and all of that. How do we get there? That's a shared discussion to have, right? And sometimes as a parent, if you've had kids, you've had those discussions from time to time, but probably don't do it that much. And certainly in business, many companies never get around to doing it. But it is a shared discussion. If you believe that the culture of our team has an impact on the success of our team, then you need to talk about it. As I said before, this is the most important aspect of your business that people never talk about. Without doubt. We're so caught up in the day-to-day stuff that we never think of the context within which we're working. Why is it that we're not doing better? Why is it that one of my clients has all these leads and his agents won't take them? Why is it that another one of my clients actually has 2 co-leads, but really one person has a lead and the other person is just a follower? And that particular team, there's like a bifurcation on the team where some people are like on this leader's side and other people are on this leader's side. And it's actually kind of like an underground argument. And absolutely that's affecting the business. And so you can probably recognize somewhere in your business that there's something in your culture that might be working against your success. And in Corey's case, absolutely. If she can't get people to talk about something like this and come around, what is it we all really care about here? And what is it that we want to deliver to our clients? There's always going to be a certain loss factor in the success of her business. And this is true for any business. So Alex, there's nothing wrong with starting off like that. Absolutely share the values list. Tell people that it's important for you to develop a shared approach to success that's a win-win for all of us and our clients, right? This is not about you imposing culture. It's about you having a discussion about how can we all win together. And eventually, if you do start with one-on-one conversations, you're just listening, getting a sense of their perspective on stuff, then you need to come together as a group and start talking. Say, okay, so, what are the values that are coming up for all of us here?
That's exactly the goal. That's the goal in mind. Definitely.
So let me ask a question to everybody here. So before we go, I'm just curious. I know that this stuff is hard to implement because I've worked on it with many, many teams. And I know it's hard to do when we're talking just for 30 minutes. And then I say, all right, go do it with your teams. And I know people struggle and barriers come up. Would it be helpful to you if I scheduled some separate times each week for a few weeks where any of you can come onto the call, ask me any questions, we can talk through how it's going on your team so that you can be sure that you're implementing this effectively? If that would be valuable to you, please put yes in the chat box. I'd be happy to do it as an extra half an hour right after this call for a few weeks, or I'd be happy to schedule it at another time during the week. But if you feel that it would be useful to you to have me as a reference for half an hour a week to just ask a question to, I'm happy to put the time into the calendar for you guys. Okay, so anybody who doesn't say yes, then I'm going to take it that you feel confident in your ability to manage this process effectively yourself. If so, that's awesome. No need to bother you with anything on the outside. But this is, folks, this is not just idle talk. This is the success of your business. You've said to these 4 people on your team or 5 people on your team, we are going to build the lives we want together. And we're trying to do that. And if at the end of the year, you're not satisfied with the results, whether it's the financial results or the way you're relating with each other or any other way that you measure success for you in this great adventure that you're on, then you need to rethink a little bit about where did those results come from. And you can't just blame it on the market. You can't just blame it on clients. Everything starts with you and your team. And so my fervent advice for all of you is, don't continue to ignore this. It is the most important influencer in your success that most people ignore. Okay, everyone, we're a couple minutes past 10. So thank you very much for your attention today. I'll find some time to schedule a couple extra conversations for anybody who wants to hop on with us, probably after retreat. I'll be at retreat, got a couple things going on before then, but I'll put a couple of things into the calendar and well, I'll make myself available for any kinds of conversations and questions. Don't allow the first obstacle that comes up for you in this to derail you from the whole process or to stop the process. As I said before, building a good team is like building a good marriage or a good family. It takes time. And so take a step, see how it goes. If it goes well, take the next step. If you struggle or you come up against a barrier, we can talk about it. I'll continue the conversation next week and we'll schedule a couple of extra slots in there for you guys to just come on and ask any questions. So thanks, everybody. Good luck. Go out there and make the contribution that only you and your team can make to the world. Have a great day. Oh, sorry. Didn't know we had a poll here today. Could you just take 2 seconds to answer the poll? Thanks so much. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. Appreciate any feedback at any time. As Chirag always says, we want to offer you content that matters to you. So please let us know. Thanks so much.